this immense pleasure to introduce Mr. Niket Karajagi for the 9th session of IMER Industry Interaction Series. Mr. Niket Karajagi is a mechanical engineer with a rich corporate experience of over 12 years in various senior management positions in brands both in India and overseas. Sir has undergone training in USA on process of counseling a change. He is a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming certified by the National Federation of Neuro-Linguistic Psychology USA. He is a business psychologist, coach and an organization transformation facilitator with over 25,000 hours of consulting and training experience while having contributed to over 150 organizations worldwide. He has trained well over 2 lakh leaders and managers globally in various behavioral and management areas. He has designed 100 training titles and implemented training to various sectors like manufacturing, automotive, IT, FMCG, logistics, telecom, pharmaceuticals and many more. Recently, Sir has delivered a career charting session for Symbiosis School of Liberal Arts followed by an assessment for the students. Presently, Sir is the founder and managing director for Atyasa Consulting Private Limited. Apart from ACPL, he is a chief instigator of 2 sister concerns, that is Atyasa Foundations and Atyasa Global Alliance. Sir is also deeply interested in providing internship opportunities to IMER students from the last few batches and extends the same support for the future batches too. With this a brief introduction, I present before you Mr. Niket Karajagi.
You know, in my career as an entrepreneur, ever since I got into management consulting, when we hire people like you from these schools and when they come into our organization, they come with the whole thought, you know, that we know it all, we've mastered all the models, we've answered them right, and you know, they come with that aura that we know it. And I think that's where the whole disaster starts, because the learning actually starts from day one of the job. And I think irrespective of whatever job you take, learning is obviously going to happen. I think the most boring job that you can ever take is a job which is about running a process. You know, running a process in the beginning is interesting because you don't have to take any responsibility. But after some time it gets very, very boring. In fact, it gets so boring that you look forward to Friday evenings and you hate the Monday morning. So that's the way it goes. You have the knowledge, and this model also says knowledge is the easiest thing to acquire. Though in college, we don't necessarily believe this concept that knowledge is the easiest thing to acquire, because we really need to work hard. But as you start going down, that's where your success will start happening. Okay, so here, whatever years you put in, whatever months you put in, you'll acquire the knowledge which is essential, but then you have to acquire the skill sets. Now what's the skill? When you get out to the job, when you start doing the job, at that point in time you start acquiring certain attributes to become effective in the job. I'm not saying successful in the job, to becoming effective in the job. So skill primarily says that when you do any activity for 1,000 hours, the skill has started developing in you. 10,000 hours and you're a full master. A lot of you here will choke up in your corporate life because the problem with skill is it's very repetitive in nature. So if you take up a repetitive job, I think the worst job to ever get into is a recruiter's job. I'm sorry if I'm offending somebody here, but the point about recruiter is, you know, you're doing the same activity over and over again, and you get so skilled, and you get skilled very fast, it actually becomes a number game. But as you start going into intellectual jobs, at that point in time you start dipping a little more into the lower layers. So if you're looking at, you know, a shift in your identity, you know, when you start handling complex jobs, what happens is you start acquiring an identity of a successful professional. You can do that here also, and the way you do that is, if you were to get involved in a lot of complex assignments, if you were to get involved in extracurricular activities, if you were to get involved in some kind of an industry interaction, at that point in time what's happening is the third layer is getting active in you. The third layer primarily gets active when your self-worth goes up. And how does your self-worth go up? When you start believing that you can handle difficult situations. And the moment that shift happens, that means the moment your identity shifts from a student to a contributor, suddenly you will find your leadership assets developing in you. Leadership cannot be learned. Leadership cannot be taught. Leadership has to be ignited. And the only way to ignite leadership is expose yourself to the most difficult situations. Unfortunately, in today's world, we don't expose ourselves to difficult situations. Technology helps us. Technology makes us absolutely mundane, routine, and I think that's where we tend to lose out. The last one is extremely crucial. It's about your motive. Now I'm going to spend some time here. I think every B school that I've been to, I see majority of the people mostly interested in the CTC. And that's the worst motive that you can ever have. I'll tell you why. I've done enough research on how the human intelligence works. When you start operating only for CTCs, the way you will give your interview itself will put the interviewer off. Because now all that you're interested in is who's going to give me the best packet. And that motive is not going to take you too far. People with these kind of motives, I've seen them in corporate organizations also. Their whole idea is I work in line with what I'm paid. So it's a horrible motive. Correct your motives. I think the best motive that I have ever seen is people taking up a job because they really want to contribute to the teams and they really want to contribute to the organization. So my personal research says people who've been successful in organizations first put the organization at the supreme level, then comes the team, and then comes self. If this structure is maintained, your motive will be right and you will absolutely do well. I have been studying our present Prime Minister very closely. I've been watching the campaign very closely and I've been watching him very closely. And I believe the whole motive was very, very clear. First the nation, then the party, then the team, and then the self. And look at the magic that happens after that. Unfortunately, what happens is people practice it reverse. First me, then my team, and then my organization. You're doomed. Absolutely doomed. And where does this whole idea come from? This idea actually comes to us from a very selfish inner being. So all those people who want to be leaders here, two things to learn from this slide. Number one, don't bloat yourself with the knowledge. You may have got the best numbers. You may have done well, extremely well in your academic curriculum. You may be passing out with flying colors, but that's not a definer for you to do well. The definer for you to do well is the bottom two. Your motive has to be right, and you must be able to deal with the most challenging situations. Only then will you be able to do well. I'll give you an insight on how you are. There are a lot of people in this room here. You can check your motive right away. A lot of people in this room would have come because they really want to make a great corporate career. That's a great motive to carry. A lot of people may have come here because they're fence sitters. They really don't know what they want to do. No problem. They can be helped. But if there is any individual here in this room who believes that I'm here for time pass, I'm here because I've been called or I've been asked to be here, I'm telling you there is a flaw in the motive. I'll be happy if there's nobody here like that. As we grow up, the motive in us starts becoming more and more solid. And when it becomes solid, then the whole cycle of disaster starts. Because another research that I've personally done says, with a wrong motive, you can grow for 10 years. But after 10 years, you'll fall flat on your face. So for 10 years, there's no problem. Everybody grows. Why 10 years? I don't know. It's an empirical formula. It's an empirical number. But 10 years is guaranteed. And I'll tell you the proof. I'll give you the proof. In India, people who are 45 plus, even 40 plus, have lost their jobs. They don't have jobs anymore. Reason? Over a period of time, the salaries grew. The motive was bad. And because the motive was incorrect, the leadership assets went for a toss. And because the leadership assets went for a toss, the organization said, you're too expensive to have. You know, a lot of people here in this room will say, we've got another 20 years to go, so why should we worry? Now comes the truth. And the truth is, the way this country is poised now, there are going to be lots of jobs. There are going to be a lot of opportunities. But then comes another trouble. And the trouble is, the demand for performance will be very, very high. And when the demand for performance is high, if you don't get to that level, you run the risk of losing your jobs. And today, culturally in India, it's perfectly okay to fire people. A few years ago, it was not okay. A company that would fire people was not supposed to be a good organization. But today, it's an accepted norm completely. Okay, so be a little careful. Let's get on to the next one. Now, this is another interesting research. A lot of you here would want to be successful. Look at this research here. It says, if you know one strength and you can operate from that one strength, your productivity goes up to 64%. Unfortunately, very few people recognize a single strength in them. What they do is they operate without knowing their strength, they operate unconsciously. And if you operate unconsciously, your productivity is actually 34%. So imagine, I don't know what my strength is, and yet I am at work. I can deliver up to 34% and I can believe that I am performing at a peak level. It's very easy to discover our strengths. Sit down with somebody you trust, somebody who's observed you, and ask this question, what do you think I'm good at? And if you discover one strength, look at it, it shoots up from 34 to 64, it doubles up completely. So all those people who have started delivering above average are at 64%. Now I'll share with you, a lot of you here will find certain subjects very interesting. Now that's your area of strength. Start building a career around that. Now if you're doing a program here on sales and marketing, it's okay. You know your strength could be in maybe product management. Your strength could be maybe in advertisement. It could be anything. You have to discover what you're good at. And then if you pick up a job which is in line with your strength, you're guaranteed to deliver 64%. But if you discover your second strength, look at it. It's a marginal shift, but 72% is good. Huh? 72% takes you into top-notch talent within the organization. Now, a lot of people became talent not knowing what their strength was because their managers understood their strength and capitalized on the strength. But the point I'm trying to put across here is if you know your strength, you go straight from 64 to 72. 3 strengths and you operate at 81%. 4 you move to 89, and 5 is where you peak at 91% because beyond that you'll burn out. You need some time. Now when you really talk about people who are extremely passionate about what they do, they actually operate at 5 strengths and they operate at 91% productivity. And when they start pushing their 6th strength in and they want to shoot up beyond 91%, actually the body starts revolting. It can't take that stress anymore. Very important for you to calibrate your strengths. So who are those people on this planet who are successful? Who are those people on the planet who are not successful? People on the planet who are successful somehow knew what their strengths were. And people on the planet who are not successful didn't know what their strength was, because ultimately in this room everybody has very similar IQ. So IQ is a definer of how you do in academics, but IQ is not a definer on how you will do in your corporate life. And by the way, the strengths have nothing to do with your curriculum that you're going through. Somebody here may be damn good in oratory skills. If you're good at that, pick up a profession which is about communicating. Someone here may be damn good in creating abstract ideas. If you're good at that, look at media as a career. If somebody here is exceptionally good in terms of analytics, look at places like business intelligence, look at jobs where you have to set up processes, that's something you will enjoy. So when you start doing a job which is in line with your strengths, you actually start enjoying. Unfortunately, I discovered it after 12 years of my corporate career. Yeah, had I seen this or had this research been out before, I think I would have saved 12 precious years of my life. I reported to some managers who could plot my success and use me. I also reported to some managers who didn't have a clue of what my strength was, and I was a disaster. But 15 years ago, when I discovered what my strengths were, and I realized that human behavior is something that I enjoy, and that's a strength that comes to me naturally. And when I started operating on that, that's when this whole organization came in. So, a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs here, don't wait for too long, please. 5 years is good. You can work for 5 years, put a deadline, after 5 years, quit and take on the entrepreneurship. And all those people here who want to be entrepreneurs, I wish and pray you get sacked from your jobs one day. And I also pray that you don't get a job after that. Because that's the only way you guys will move on to entrepreneurship. Because unfortunately, jobs make you very, very dependent. You know, it's very interesting. When you are a good person, when you actually deliver in corporates, they give you fat salaries, they give you perks, and they make you completely dependent. And they actually make you insecure. They make you so insecure that you can actually compromise on your dreams. Now that is where the whole downfall starts. So all those people who want to be entrepreneurs here, please be very clear to move through 3 years of reversal in your life. 3 years of reversal, 7 years of solid work, and you will create a fantastic organization. All those people who want to take up corporate jobs, identify your strengths, look at jobs which are in line with those strengths, and then go and appear for those interviews. Otherwise what will happen is, you get a jolt, and ultimately you will start losing your self-worth, and that should never happen to any individual. So that's the second research. Let's roll to the next part. So let's talk about now what is it that corporates actually look for in you. Now, I'm not going to get into everything there, that's something that you can read, but I'm going to discuss something that's right in the middle of the circle. Honesty and integrity is very, very crucial when you take up a job. Your bosses are smart. They know when a person fakes it. They're seasoned. And a lot of times, a lot of people believe that they can get away by pulling a fast one. And it's very difficult to get away by pulling a fast one, because ultimately, like truth emerges, even the lie emerges. And the moment the lie emerges, organizations today are focusing a lot on honesty and integrity, and you could run the risk of losing a job. And even if you don't lose your job, you could actually run the risk of losing credibility in the organization. India has the lowest score on this. And I'm not surprised that we are not doing well globally, because this is the lowest score. You know, business people think it is important to be dishonest to create a great business. In turn, what happens is organizations worldwide don't want to do business with us. Corporate professionals believe it's okay, we can get away with it. Yes, I think a couple of times you can get away, but ultimately it comes back. The teams, tomorrow you become managers and teams will report to you. And every deception the team is going to notice. And every time the team notices the deception, they're not going to feel okay about you. So honesty and integrity is prime. It doesn't matter whether you've discovered your strengths or not discovered your strengths. Now this will sound very philosophical for some people here. But I'll tell you a case in point which happened to me today while I was having lunch with Raj. We picked up a young kid from B school, joined us 10 days ago. Told us, I'm going to the college because the college has called me for some work. And we actually found out he had not been to the college. He had gone somewhere else. And we called up. And then he had to say, yeah, I didn't go to the college. And there was no other way out. We had to ask him to quit. So, don't do this. You know, at young age, this looks very sweet, very cute. But as we become professionals, it doesn't, right? So focus on this. You have something called as conscience in you. Listen to your conscience. And the worst thing about conscience is, when you stop listening to your conscience, the conscience dies. And the moment the conscience dies, the leadership traits are gone. You can't have a leader who's full of deception ever. And by the way, leadership is not about age. A lot of people mistake leadership as age. Then there are these whole concepts about leadership. Leaders are born, leaders are created. Both are true. Yeah, both are true. It's just that you need to have the motive or the intent in you to evolve as a leader. And this is the first trait. All leaders worldwide are honest. And I'm not talking about politicians as leaders, I'm talking about corporate leaders. You know, I virtually worship Mr. Ratan Tata for what he is. And I think it's a true legacy of KRD. And this is one person I think is absolutely full of integrity. And so much is the integrity that even when he got stuck, when he was questioned, he came out absolutely clean. And what has taken him through is this. There are a lot of big brands today which have delivered this, but there are a lot of rich brands today, and the rich brands are the ones who made money, but they've not practiced this. But a lot of great brands that we have, they're here. So obviously all of you who want to work for great brands and not the rich brands will have to invite this in you. If it already exists in you, fantastic, right? Let's go to the next one. Technical and professional expertise. Very crucial. Learning never stops. A lot of times we believe once we're out of college, in any case, 2 years was hell. You know, why get in for additional grooming? You must invest. In fact, I would strongly recommend, till such time you retire, and I also believe only idiots retire, right? So, normally people don't retire. Mark some amount every year for your own development. Reason being, the rate of obsolescence today is very high and it's extremely fast. And by the way, what you've learned here is good, but when you actually get on to real life scenarios, you will require to learn a lot more. So you will work with organizations which will invest in training programs, you will work with organizations who will sponsor you out for training programs. You may discover that there is a particular learning program that you want to go through and the organization is not willing to fund it. Don't wait for the organization. You know, it's very interesting. People spend thousands of rupees on dinner. They spend lakhs of rupees on holidays. But when it comes to education, we become extremely miserly. So that's the next one. Yeah? This is very important. Critical thinking is what we call it. And this is missing today. I'll tell you why it's gone missing. It's not analytical thinking, it's critical thinking. What is critical thinking? I'm able to analyze, but while I do analyze, I'm able to preempt what could go wrong. So this requires in the brain, the thinking part of the brain to grow. The problem with our academic system is we believe in cramming. And the more we cram, the more we borrow ratta, this starts deteriorating in our mental capacity. Today, if I die for some competency, when I hire people from the school, is critical thinking. We actually have to sit down with them and tell them what to do. And after that has been told, only then can they go ahead and implement. Don't do this. And the best way to get into critical thinking is start getting into projects, start getting into ambiguities, and sort it out yourself. Don't depend on people. The lesser you depend on people, the more will be your ability of critical thinking. And critical thinking helps you solve problems, helps you to analyze issues. And by the way, when you go and get a job, the job primarily is to only solve problems. There is no job which has a KRA built in which says don't solve any problems. All jobs are all about solving problems. So the more you do well in terms of solving problems, the better it is. And by the way, solving a question in an exam is not critical thinking. You've read a book, you would have understood it at a conceptual level. If you've understood it at a conceptual level, good, then the critical thinking is happening. But if you're writing something without really understanding what it is, critical thinking, take a meeting. Work on this. Another one. The next one. Innovation. Do something new always. The problem with us is we've converted our life into a routine completely. We have the same set of friends. We have the same set of things that we do. We've chosen the same set of colors that we want to wear. We can go to such an extent that we have the same set of brands that we would want to wear. And that starts killing innovation. Because innovation starts happening when you start doing new things. Today, the corporate world is looking at big time innovators. And let's look at the interesting factor of what happens when you start innovating. You know, when a guy who's been a tailor starts innovating, he becomes a fashion designer. Otherwise, he's just a tailor. A guy who opens up a hair-cutting saloon, when he becomes a stylist, when does he become a stylist? When he starts innovating. Likewise, when a corporate professional starts innovating, he qualifies as a talent. So I've been hand-holding with a lot of talents in different organizations, and one common trait that I see in them is innovation. Innovation can only happen when you inculcate the habit in you to do things that you're afraid of doing. And if you're stuck in a routine, it's not going to work for you. Right? Let's go to the next one. Constantly hone up your skills. This is very crucial. So I always say it in the Indian way of mythology, and I say, you know, be pujas of Saraswati, don't be pujas of Lakshmi. Lakshmi will follow in any case. But if you're not pujas of Saraswati, then Lakshmi will also not come to you. So the best way to become rich in life, become extremely powerful in knowledge, you make a lot of money. Right? So we talk about self-development. And when we start doing self-development, I want to talk about that whole idea of initiative there. Today I don't see initiative. I'm sorry, I sound negative, but I can't help it. I'm sharing my experience with you. Yeah, and I can't share my experience with you by being positive, you know, and I give you a fake message saying, you know what, we have loads of people who take initiative. They don't. In fact, initiative is very rare because initiative comes with risk. If I take initiative, there is a probability or a chance that I might fail. And in order to not fail, you don't want to take initiative. Right? Look at yourself. If you've taken initiatives here, if you have participated in a lot of things that this institution of yours organizes and nobody called you but you volunteered for it, you've taken a lot of initiative. But if you're happy not doing things, you know, and you're happy being in the office, in the institution physically and going back home in the evening, you're not really taking any initiative. And that's one thing that everybody's going to look for. Okay, let's look at the next one. Results. Today I think our country is plagued with activity-oriented people. WIP is the norm of this country now. What are you doing? I'm studying. The verb is very, it's very classic. So I'm studying. What are you doing? I'm learning. By the way, there's a difference between studying and learning. Right? I hope someday people will find what the difference is. And I don't want to tell about what the difference is. This country loves hard-working people. But the unfortunate part about hard-working people is they don't deliver results. You know, have you noticed? You might be having some friends who work very hard and ultimately fail. What happens? You work very hard and you fail. You study very hard and you fail. People say, "Malam ne kya kare isne?" I mean, what did you do the entire year? In fact, you know, you start losing faith in that person completely. And even if that person is putting his heart and soul in studying, they are faking, not really studying, must be doing something else. You could also start saying, "Kita ulta pakad ke baithta hai," you know. The Western world is not activity oriented. As we start moving towards East, we start becoming activity oriented. So if you look at the SAARC region, it's quite activity oriented. And this is where the trouble starts. We start looking for jobs in multinational organizations. Multinational organizations look for result oriented people, and the intake is activity oriented people. And result oriented management does not tolerate activity-oriented people, and activity-oriented people can't tolerate result-oriented management. If you look at all the brands in India who are now started transforming themselves, one thing that they're focusing on is getting in people who deliver results. And interestingly, whenever I train, whenever I talk to people, everybody believes hard work should be rewarded. And today the country is saying results should be rewarded. Right? So what are we saying here in this slide? It doesn't matter how hard you work. What matters is, did you deliver what you were expected to deliver? It doesn't matter how many hours you studied. If you did well in your academics, fantastic. Right? Good. Let's do the next one. Have big goals. Think big, dream big. And go for big numbers in life. That's another problem I see as a behavioral chap. Whenever I ask people, what do you want to be in life? They say something big. And I say, what do you mean by something big? Malum nahi. Something big. What kind of a job are you looking for? Good job. What do you mean a good job? Not very sure. But when it comes to CTC, it's result oriented. There is no ambiguity. Correct? A lot of times in interviews, I have rarely found people asking me, what is the job profile? What am I expected to do? They're itching to jump towards CTC. It's like sometimes I feel, अगर तुम्हारा CTC low है ना तो मेरे को बात नहीं करने का तुमसे. That's typically the way the interview is happening. Yeah, and a lot of times people actually go and meet up with their faculty. वो देते हैं ठीक से पैसा तो will go. Don't do that. I think first 3 years look at the content of the job. If I look back in my life, I work for large brands, I work for small brands. But I tell you, all the brands which is small that I worked for, that's where I actually slogged it out, and that's where I learned a lot. In bigger brands, I was only handling a process. Big brands actually choke you up. But go for big brands after you've acquired the knowledge through small brands. That's the way to success, right? So, have big goals. And it doesn't matter from which city you come from. Sometimes we have this crazy phenomenon. I come from a smaller city, so my goals are in line with that city. You come from Mumbai, Bangalore, so your goals are in line with nothing like that. Doesn't matter where you come from, right? Okay, let's go ahead. We talked about initiative. So that slide is appearing as a special slide now, though it was a part of the smaller thing. But when you're talking about taking initiative, look at the second one, the speed. A lot of people believe delivering results means taking your own time. You're living in a world which is extremely fast-paced today. You're going to lead a lifestyle once you move into corporate where every 5 minutes becomes critical for you. And as you grow up the pyramid, you'll actually be so hard-pressed on time that you will believe that 24 hours is not good enough. I mean, if you look at the gentleman from Amitabh Bachchan, I believe he works 18 hours. Yeah. There are a lot of politicians that I have groomed and they have told me they only sleep 3 hours a day. That means they're working rest of the time. Why do they do that? Because they're taking so much initiative and they're operating at such a fast speed that they actually start running out of time. And if you start running out of time, you're short on a fast track. Your organization is going to love you. But if you're going to be very slow, so a lot of people who are slow call themselves as thinkers. I'm thinking. Now the problem with thinking is, the CEO does not like people who think too much, by the way. The CEO likes action-oriented people, right? So let's do the next one. Some people don't communicate at all. They normally give themselves a license saying I'm an introvert. I said, कुछ तो psychometric tool website पे लेने का, and then it declares you as an introvert, and the moment it declares you as an introvert, you got the license not to talk. They also say we talk to people whom we get along with. By the way, corporate life is all about talking to people whom you don't get along with. And then ultimately we blame our culture. I come from a family of quiet people. If you can't communicate, be rest assured, you will go nowhere in your corporate life. Corporate people don't want silent workers. So there is a new cliched statement in corporate today. In order to grow in corporate, you must give good PowerPoint presentations. And they are bang on the dot. Because in today's world, the organizations are so big that if you expect that work speaks for itself, that paradigm does not hold true anymore. If you work and you don't speak about your work, somebody else is going to take the credit and you're going to feel very bad about it. So all those people here who call themselves introvert, call themselves good listeners, call themselves shy. Can you imagine you sit for an interview and you don't talk? Yeah? Or they also say, I talk when I feel like talking. Now, this is dangerous. When I'm going for an interview and I don't feel like talking. Or I talk to the point. What is to the point? The answers are only yes and no. Have you cleared your curriculum? Yes. Are you looking for a job? Yes. Are you willing to move? No. No. This doesn't work. So what are we saying? We're also saying you should be able to communicate with all sorts of people and you must also be very mobile. That's another problem I see. Some people have set a rule for themselves. This is my boundary. This is where I will work. These are the only cities which are good enough for me. Other cities not good enough for me. Yeah, now this guy comes to you with a job and says, we'd like you to move to a plant in Hazira. No, next interview. I mean, why? There aren't any takers. There are job opportunities in absolute remote places. Go, have fun for 2 years, learn, come back. Now, by the way, you guys have nothing to lose. You're so young, you can actually move anywhere. And then I hate this phenomenon for society, which is all about settling down people. There is this whole quest in families to settle down. So it doesn't matter which gender you belong to. So men have to settle down, and ladies also have to settle down. So when girls settle down, they're called ladies. You don't become a lady if you're unsettled. Right? And there's actually serious education that happens when people get married. It happened to me. When I got married, the whole family sat in front of me and said, you know what? You're married. I said, I know that. And then they said, it's time you settle down. But I had already learned in those 2 days when you get married, you actually get unsettled. You never settle down after you get married. And I don't know from where this whole weird concept came of, settling down. Yeah, it is. People look for a job where they can settle down. I mean, it's so horrible to see a person who settled down. The way they would climb those stairs outside, will tell you whether the person is settled down. You'd rather like unsettled people than settled people. Settled people are very obnoxious on their faces. They're bored. I think even a fly won't want to sit on that face. So there's nothing interesting about that face. You're laughing, but there's no other way I can describe that face. And some people are settled right there since they were born. Parents take all their decisions. I'm settled. You decide. They grow up like that. Yeah? I have noticed there are a lot of settled people in these schools. Very interesting folks. They study. They don't know why they study. Yeah? Some people ask them, why are you doing management? Karna padta hai. It's very settled, no? Yeah, somebody is thought of somebody and you're sending that message across, some names are being passed around here on settled people. That happens. Yeah, maybe somebody may be passing my name also around, who looks like a settled person. So, what are we saying? If you're unsettled, you'll communicate a lot. If you're settled, you will not feel the need to communicate. Now, when you move into corporate world is extremely unsettled. And because it's unsettled, you'll have to talk a lot, you'll have to ask a lot of questions. That's another thing that's missing. And I blame the education system for it. We are only taught to answer questions. We are not taught to ask questions. Leadership is about asking questions. And by the way, only people who ask questions become powerful in life. Huh? Can you imagine you're only answering questions? When you go down for an interview, start asking questions to the interviewer, you will immediately get a job. I'll tell you why. You ask the interviewer, what is it that I'm supposed to do? And now he's got to answer. And then he says, wow, this person seems to be brainy, he's thinking. Then you ask another question. Will I be able to innovate? He says, okay. But I'm a person who's only answering questions. So the interviewer is asking me questions and I'm like a good, nice person answering those questions. I may be communicating, but I may not be communicating powerfully. And what we also need people, broadly would mean, I've got to talk about big things. Not only talk, but I must deliver too. But it at least starts off with talking, right? A lot of people have very small dreams and they communicate with very, very small stuff. Guaranteed. Today, all the interviewers would come to your place. And by the way, India today is poised at a point where you're going to have people coming in and picking up people truckloads. Because the market is going to boom very soon, in the next 2 to 3 months. Everybody is ramping up. Jobs are there. So don't worry about jobs. We worry about retaining that job. Because while that boom happens, you need people who deliver. You don't need people who are bodies moving into the organization. Right? So, their bodies moving into the organization. They look dead. I call them the living corpses. Oh, you should see them in meetings, how they look. I don't know why you're doing a meeting. Hota to kuch hai nahi. A lot of people come and sit in the classroom, मालूम नहीं क्या पढ़ा है, बोलने का तो कुछ है नहीं. Yeah, it happens everywhere, right? So that's what we talk about. Okay, next one. Inspires. Stop looking for motivation. A lot of times when I ask people, what kind of a manager are you looking for? A manager who will motivate me. That fellow himself is demotivated. How are you motivated? I'll give you a real life story. I was training one of the brands and I was talking to the HR folks there and the ops guys there. So one chap actually came and told me and gave me the story. He said, after working for 10 years, I went to my manager and said, sir, I'm very demotivated. So the manager looked into his eyes and said, Baitho. So he made him sit in front. He said, last 30 years I'm demotivated. It's a real life story, huh? He said, I looked at him, I thanked him, and I walked out of the room. Because I realized there's nobody who's going to motivate me. In our culture, we've been brought up in a way where everybody is supposed to motivate us. We like to be surrounded by people who are busy motivating us. And the whole matter about motivation, the more you try to motivate, the more people become demotivated. Yeah, because you're getting attention now. Can you imagine faculties actually sit down and motivate students to study? And they've been doing it for last how many years? I don't know. And the student has fun, huh? Then they come out and say, interesting session one. Yeah, I did that as a student. Yeah. World hasn't changed. Right, so we do that, right? So, inspire. How do you inspire people? One, you must be able to come up with breakthrough ideas. What's a breakthrough idea? Something which is absolutely wide. And by the way we are brought up since our childhood, we are not expected to think wide. The moment you start thinking wide, you will be called a black sheep at home. अपने घर में कैसे पैदा हुआ? How can you come up with such ideas? That's what. The first thing about inspiring is you must have absolute wild ideas. And when I'm saying wild ideas that contribute to you and people. There are a lot of wild ideas which are so bloody wild, but they're weird. So I'm not talking about weird ideas, I'm talking about wild ideas. That's the first one. Second, you should be able to convert that idea into a logical framework, because people get scared with wild ideas. Third, you should be able to tell that person about that idea. A lot of people can't communicate that idea. And the last one, if you want to inspire people, you must build fantastic relationships. Because nobody who's not relating with you will ever get inspired by you. And I don't know, but relationship is something which is an art. Some people are damn good at it, some people are not good at it, but can be learned. No problem. Alright, next one. Simple formula for finding out whether you're good at relationships. If you are moving around with the same set of people, and when you sit in the canteen with the same set of people, and you have child with the same set of people, you're pathetic on relationships. Horrible. You have chosen 3 people in your life, and you cling on to them as best friends. Aren't you bored of them? They're so bloody predictable. You know they're going to be late. You also know who pehle aake baitha hoga. And that relationship is so boring. And there is this whole chota circle everywhere in every college we have it. अंदर आने को नहीं देने का किसी को. That's a conspiracy. We're so bloody insecure about it, no? That if the 5th person comes into a group of 4, the bitching starts. The whole idea is to ward off this person from the group. And then there are some people who have groups and they overlap in the groups. They are not supposed to be best friends. They're supposed to be floaters. तू क्या कभी उसके साथ मूवी जाता है, कभी उसके साथ मूवी जाता है, तू मेरा है ही नहीं. This is outright stupidity, No, you're clapping, I like it. But the fact that you're clapping means it's happening, no? घर पे भी special auntie and a special uncle. बाकी घर भाड़ में. Stop this. Corporate life is all about relating with people who intellectually differ from you. You know why people love dogs? They never differ from you. And if the dog differs from you, they don't like that pet also. They give that pet for adoption. No, we don't want this fellow. Doesn't listen to us. So, how do you find out whether you're good in relationships? Look at the number of friends you have. Ask yourself this question: can you be in different groups, or are you sticking to the same group? It also means, are you able to relate with people who are elder to you in age? We also have this framework within us. वो अलग generation का है. You can't tell that to your manager. And I don't know what to tell your manager's manager. You're a pretty dinosaur. You're so old. You're an ancient piece of art. Who did well in your era, but now it doesn't work. It's simple. How many of you had built great relationships with your faculties over the last whatever months that you're here or years? If you've done that, great. You have the ability to build relationships with all sorts of people. But if you've not, you can't. And the beauty is if you can build relationships with the worst faculty. Now who's the worst faculty? Faculties were tough. Who's a nice faculty? जो एग्जाम में आता है पता It happens everywhere. That is not relationship, it's a selfish attitude. You're manipulating and you're using that person. The poor chap also doesn't understand. he's doing a great favor to you. Seriously concerned about the fact तुम लोग पढ़ते नहीं है, तुमको पास होने के लिए मैं क्वेश्चन भी देता है और आंसर भी देता है. Not that's how it is. But faculties who talk concepts, faculties who start moving into some very tough issues, tough subjects, or faculties who talk about discipline. At the college where we were doing research, we were doing research on boring faculties. And you know what was the outcome of the research? All faculties who actually do their job and deliver concepts are found to be boring. For it. You bunk that lecture, no? Now you deserve it. No, I bunked. Everybody bunks. Yeah. Some people have wrong reasons for bunking and some people have good reasons for bunking. Good reason घर में काम था. Socially okay. Bad reason to bunk movie है. But the point here we're talking about is, if you are helping people in their growth, corporates that you apply for, they will like this. And I suggest you start giving them evidences of how you help people while you're here. It will take you a long way. Yes, ma'am. Nice one. Learn to work in teams. If you work alone, you're not going to go long. Because possibly the first 1.5 years is when you will be able to work alone. After that, you're expected to work in teams. And actually today, a lot of organizations have something called as cross-functional teams. What are cross-functional teams? People from different departments. So finance, marketing, supply chain, engineering, they all come together and they foster collaboration. Because innovation happens only when you foster collaboration. Another key competency. Do a check. If you participated in extracurricular activities here, you are actually displaying this. But if you didn't participate in extracurricular activities, or you took up activities which you could do alone, you're not able to develop this competence. And by the way, these traits that I'm talking about, everybody is born with these traits. It's just that you have to start activating these traits within you by taking up those scenarios. Alright, next one. I think we're coming to the end of it now, so let's take a couple of ones. A strategic perspective, which primarily means you must know where the organization is going and you must aid and assist that organization in the results. If you're able to do that, you have a strategic mindset. People use strategy in a very weird way. चलो बेलगाम से बॉम्बे जाने का strategy क्या है? Well, there's no strategy. We use strategy as a word very loosely. Strategy purely means anything that is in line with the vision of the organization. So my sincere suggestion to you, when you appear for interviews or when you take up your corporate jobs, be very clear about what is the vision of the organization. And you must be able to discuss the vision also. Yes, ma'am. Next one. India needs these kind of people today. You must be champions of change. Don't be settled. You must become instruments of change within the organization. Which means what? You come up with ideas, and a lot of times you'll have weird managers. They'll tell you, "Abhi to idea leke aaya na, tu kar." So do it. That's the only way to become visible. Forget about champions of change. I think we have a lot of people who have aversion to change. And that's a problem. This trait is going to be looked at when you appear for interviews. And change would primarily mean always move in situations which are uncomfortable. Yeah? Okay, the next one. Your network outside. When you become a corporate professional, you must get along with people from different organizations, people from different industries. This is one of the highest social competencies that one can look for. A lot of you will, move into different organizations, and if you're able to network with different organizations, if you're able to network with people in the industry, you're actually showing this kind of competence. This becomes relevant when you start moving into senior management positions also. I mean, today if I have to look at why am I talking to you, I'm talking to you primarily because this is it. I'm connecting with the outside world. So a lot of people are focused only internally within the organization. So when you attend seminars, when you go talk to people in open conferences, this is what you tend to do. Right now, next one. Okay, we're done. I'd like you to realize one thing. It's important to talk. You know, the sidebar conversation is not really what is interesting. Here, when you ask a question, it's for helping the other people also, right? So ask them first whether they ask the question. If they say no, doesn't matter, we'll help you still. We're not saying that we're not helping. Right? Thank you very much. Hope you guys do phenomenally well in your careers. And I must also assure you that you belong to a great institution. I've been a part of this institution, and I think it's created a lot of good professionals, successful professionals. Raj is sitting here, he's one of those classic examples. So, be happy, pick up good jobs, pick up great jobs, put your heart and soul into it. And my last message to you would be, the world is undergoing a change. Only people who stand on their feet will do well. And all those people who depend on others, God save them. Right? Thank you very much. Hope to see you again.
I hope everybody felt like standing in front of the mirror. Yes? But let me tell you, mirror always lies. We actually stood in front of Niket sir, who showed what actually we are and what is that actually we need to build in terms of the qualities. And we are very happy that we are associated with Atyasa, the kind of the organization which believes in the results and grooming the people to deliver the results. And we take immense pleasure to announce that two of our students who did their internship in Atyasa last few months back, are actually being respected for their results which they delivered in the organizations during their internship. Sampada and Asya are the two students from HR stream who actually have exhibited and shown most of the qualities that we just discussed, and the witness of that particular delivery or the result orientation is Niket sir himself. So sustaining for 2 months in the internship and coming out with the expectations, coming true to the expectation of Atyasa's culture, I think we should really clap for their efforts that they did in their internship. And to recognize the same, I call upon Niket sir and Vinayak sir to honor the students on behalf of Atyasa. I call upon Sampada and Asya on the stage.
Good afternoon, everybody. In the last 3 odd years that I have been with Atyasa, I have had the opportunity of working with a lot of interns, with a lot of freshers who just passed out of the B school and have joined us. But what differentiated the two colleagues of yours from the others was their ability to think independently, complete the tasks on schedule and as per the quality norms that was expected of them without fail. They were able to take that stress, although they were pretty young and they were really butchered by people like me. Yeah. So don't go on my face. Yeah, they know what kind of stress that I put them into. But they really were able to take that stress and work independently and deliver the results. And that is why we really felt that they have the mettle to actually succeed in the corporate life. And heartiest congratulations to the institute for actually making the students to deliver by themselves. I'm sure a lot of you would also be in the same mettle. However, we were not able to kind of work with you, all of you. But I really respect the organization for creating such talents, and I hope the institution carries on the good work that it has been doing in the past, present, and will always do in the future. Thank you so much and all the best to all of you. Thank you.
The in one word we can convey our feeling is overwhelmed is the right word. And at this juncture, we'd like to thank a few people without whom the success wasn't possible. We would like to term it as success because we know what kind of satisfaction one person gets when he puts hard work. Firstly, at the outset, we'd like to thank Niket sir and Rishikesh sir for giving us this opportunity to work at Atyasa. Of course, with Vinayak sir and Kaushik sir as well, we have had a wonderful working experience. I'd like to thank the whole project management team of Atyasa who has every time guided us throughout this project. We'd like to thank Dr. Kirti Shivkumar who has supported and guided us throughout the internship period as a mentor. We thank Mr. Suhas Rajput sir, our placement officer, who directed us in the direction of this particular internship opportunity. We thank all our professors and this institution for imparting that kind of knowledge and skills that we could find ourselves in a place compatible enough to work at Atyasa. Talking about my own personal experience, at the very first day at Atyasa, I understood that what conceptual clarity means and what amount of confidence your conceptual clarity can give you while working. Right from the management principles that we learn, that of Frederick Taylor, to the measures of central tendency in statistics and the applications of bell curve in performance management system, every single concept has helped us in working this particular project. So I have a very kind request to all of you. Please take interest in your academic classes. I know they are very theoretical in nature, but it is in our hands to make them more interesting and interactive through our own active participation. And at IMER, we have excellent faculty members, we have excellent knowledge extraction resources like library and lab, computer lab. So let us make best use of this and build a good foundation for our own successful future. I thank all once again.